Right, so we're going to do a lesson or a few. Today will be one on some of the stock virtual instruments that come with Pro Tools so that we can kind of know how to use the things that are free. We don't all have access to Contact and Battery and all that anymore at the moment. So one of the ones that came up because some people were using it is a drum instrument called Boom. So our goal for this video is to learn how to use the Boom instrument. And I will probably say boom a lot because I kind of like how it sounds. Boom. So let's all create a new session. Let's call it Boom. With your name on it, please. 2448. Interleaved would be fine, no big deal, and kind of unrelated to what we're going to be doing. And I always like to remind you that if desktop is at the end of this hierarchy, that's where you'll find your session folder. Go ahead and hit create. Go ahead and make a new instrument track. We can make it in stereo or mono. Instrument, let's call that Boom. In our first insert, let's insert the multi-channel plug-in instrument called Boom. Makes sense. And up comes this very retro-looking drum machine. And that's what Boom is. It was kind of modeled after some of the early 808, TR-505. Roland made a whole bunch of these things, and other companies as well. So when you bring it up, you can press start and hear that it plays a pattern. If I were to open up the MIDI editor, and I think that this is what a few of you discovered, that you can use it like any other sound source where, C is your kick drum, D is your snare drum, F sharp is your hi-hats, closed hi-hat. Okay, my classic 2/4 beat I like to use to demonstrate simple things. But really, it's not meant only, you can do that, but it's meant to use as a pattern generator. So we're going to go over kind of the whole thing. And at the end of it, you're going to create a three-pattern use a drum part using three patterns and bounce it and submit it. In any case, let's go over this thing. So you have here the edit modes. You have pattern edit and pattern select. In pattern select mode, each of these pads, these 16 pads, represent a different drum pattern or drum beat. So okay, so you can click on each one of them. They'll play into one another, and you have 16 different patterns. So this is pattern 1, the one that's highlighted. And when you click on these, you'll see that the lights up in this matrix here also change. So this is representing essentially what the drum beat looks like, say, in the MIDI editor. So your closed hi-hat row, it looks like it's playing 16th notes. I guess I should point that out. There are 16 lights. Each column, you can see that there's a lighter gray column and a lighter gray column, a lighter gray column. And those are the quarter notes. So beats 1, 2, 3, and 4. Again, 16th notes, so this is essentially one measure. So on this drum beat, this pattern, you have kick drum on 1, 2, 3, and 4. You have snare drum on 2 and 4. You have the rim shot on the 4th, 16th note of beat 2 and beat 3. You have hi-hats playing 16th notes. We'll talk about why some of these are lighter color. Actually, let's talk about it right now. What you can do is there are 3 levels of velocity, essentially. You click it once, you get full bright, little dimmer, off. So those are essentially, you can think of them as volumes with their velocities. And you get a little bit of accenting if you don't just have full bright colors all the way across. And that's essentially what this shows. So imagine this is kind of like the MIDI editor. It also tells you that you're triggering pattern 1. And then also notice that this says C3, and that's going to come into play later. Pattern 2 is C#3. All right, so we have a pattern. I'm going to clear this pattern. You have drum kits. So if you click on where it says electro, you have urban 1, urban 2, blah, 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 blah. Let's see what fat sounds like. You can click on your kick drum, click on your snare drum. You can also, so that changes, the drum kit changes every drum. But if you go to the individual drum, you can choose the kick from, urban 2. Don't like that. Don't like that either. Let's go to fat 9 and see what that is. Ew. So you can change the individual drums, but you don't have a whole lot to choose from, whatever that 10 different drum sets or so. Now going up, so I'm just listening to this kick. When I put it in there, I was like, oh my God, it's so high pitched. Well, you have a tuning knob. So you're able to kind of tune it to be lower pitched. Now, but this is one of those sounds also that I have, shared with different people, that when you choose a sound like that, it actually has a pitch to it, and it could not necessarily blend with the notes that you're playing in other parts. That's why 808s play to pitch, right? It kind of is a combination of a drum and a bass. In any case, not to get caught up in music making at this point. So moving on up, we have the kick, we have the sound that the kit from which our kick drum is coming. We have mutes and solos, decay. Let me just, so you kind of create like an 808-ish type of thing. Let's lower that. We have level, which is essentially volume from within a particular pattern if you want to mix your pattern. And you have some panning. This is not totally fluid, but you can go center and kind of, in various levels of centered or off to the left of panning. And then each one of these screws here actually does do something. So you can kind of click on these screws and it adjusts something. In this case, it sounds like almost a little bit like saturation, a little bit of distortion. But it's different for each drum. So that's kind of a little surprise tweak you can make. All right, so just moving along, you got kick, snare, rim, and again, you can choose different sounds from within the different drum kits. And then, of course, going vertically, you have the same thing for each, right? So you have your decay, tuning, level, panning, and your screw. Now, how do we create a pattern? So if we're in pattern edit mode, when we select the kick drum, these pads represent the 16th notes for the kick. So if I want to go ahead and make like a 4 on the floor beat, notice that these white lines kind of break up the 4 quarter notes. So 5 is beat 2, 9 is beat 3, 13 is beat 4. And essentially what I've done is I've put kicks on beats 1, 2, 3, and 4. I choose my snare drum, I'm going to put snare on 2 and 4. If I choose my hi-hat, then I might put in eighth notes by skipping each one. But I'm going to go ahead and then add some of those accents. So I'll make it a 16th note pattern, but I'm making sure that every other 16th note is at its lowest level of accent. Okay. Now it's kind of cool because you can edit it here too, or you can input in the matrix as well. So if you're kind of more feeling it, okay, and there you have like a basic pattern. All right. Remember, in pattern select mode, we're doing pattern 1, and what you can do is hit copy, and then you see all of these other ones except for one, because that's the one that is copied. All of these become destinations where you can copy your pattern. So I'm going to copy this to pattern 2, and actually I'm going to go back to pattern 1 and take off these rim shots, and I'm going to put them into pattern 2 because I like them, but I don't want them every time, for example. And then on this one, I'm also going to, let's put it into edit mode. Let's play it. Let's put some, oh, interesting. I have open hi-hat, which kind of sounds bunk, but I didn't mean to do that. Who cares? Let's put in, keep doing that. So what's kind of cool about a generator like this is you can't be offbeat. You can't. These are all 16th notes. There's nothing in between, which is also kind of one of the drawbacks. It's fairly limited in what it can do. It can only play, 16th up to 16th notes, or down to 16th notes, depending how you think about it. Back to pattern select. If I want to copy this one and build upon it, copy it to pattern 3. And let's just be random about some stuff and just like put some stuff in there. Okay, so now I have 3 patterns. I click on pattern 1, you see the very basic. Pattern 2 added a couple things. Pattern 3 we went cuckoo bird. What else can we do with this thing? So you can play back at double time. You can play back at half time. You can put in triplets. You can affect the swing. Which is not so easy to hear in a big pattern like that, but you could hear it with the rims. Instead of like ka-ka, it's ka-ka. In any case, and again, you can play with tuning, you can play with level, you can play with decay of each different sound. Now, what else haven't I touched on? I think that's kind of about it. Now, how do you get these things to play? Because you can't just like in a song, you're not going to sit here and press, kind of cool like in a live performance or something, but it's not for programming a song. So here's what we learn. Up here in pattern, it says 1 and C3. Pattern 2, C sharp 3. Pattern 3, D3. So basically what that means, it's not basically, what that means is that C3 triggers the pattern. You have your individual sounds in the first and second octave, and starting at this third octave, you get your patterns. So what you're going to do, what you want to do, is draw out a measure-long note that represents the patterns that you create. And what I want you to do is to put in some changes. So I want you to create at least 3 patterns, and I want it to be pattern 1, 2, 1, 3. So you're going to end up making a 4-measure loop, essentially. And you can see that it's triggering those different patterns. Now, what should also be able to happen is that, oops, you can shorten, say we shorten this one, and I'm going to get totally crazy here, but let's just see. See, it doesn't sound great where it ended there. I've had kids, I used to teach this actually, I just stopped because we have different instruments. But you could tweak that and kind of end it a little bit earlier. Or you can, you can make pattern 4. Actually, let's take pattern 1 and copy it to pattern 4, and then take off, go into edit mode a little bit easier. I don't want any of these. Let's get rid of the kicks, snares, and there would be more or less half a measure. So if I wanted to, I could do this and take this one, and this is now, even though it's drawn out to play for a full measure, should only play for half a measure. Okay, so whatever your 4-measure loop becomes, I want it to have at least 3 different patterns. Okay, that 4th was just my improv there. Please highlight it. 4 measures. You can choose your tempo. You can leave it at 120, whatever. Hopefully you have fun with it and do more than you need to do. Some of you will do the minimum. And I want you to go to File and Bounce to Disk. I want you to export this as an MP3, not as a WAV file, please. And it will be called Boom with your name on it. And I want you to submit that to Canvas. All right? Not too tough, hopefully fun.